The moment the video call connected, I knew something was wrong. My daughter, little 8-year-old Hazel, never called me during her school field trips. Yet there she was, cheeks flushed from excitement, the roar of a packed basketball arena behind her. I smiled at first, until her words carved a cold line straight through my chest. "Mom," she whispered, lifting her iPhone higher, "who's Dad kissing at the game?" I froze. For a second, I thought she meant someone else's father. My husband, Grant, had texted me not even an hour earlier, claiming he was in a meeting with investors, the kind he always insisted required silence and respect. But as Hazel tilted the camera, the world I had fought so hard to keep standing tilted with it. There he was, Grant Whitford, my husband of 10 years, the man who promised me stability after a lifetime of scrambling, the man I trusted with our daughter's future and with the unborn child growing quietly inside me. His arm was wrapped around a woman I had never seen before, young, polished, and leaning into him as if she belonged there. And he kissed her, boldly, carelessly, as if he had never held my face with those same hands, as if he had never sworn we were a team. I've always believed betrayal announces itself gently, a missed call, a strange receipt, a shift in tone. But no one warns you that sometimes it arrives as a punch to the ribs delivered by your own child's innocent voice. The camera shook as Hazel lowered the phone, confused and hurt. "Mom, why is he doing that?" My breath hitched. My hand tightened around the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. And right then, beneath the fluorescent lights of the office parking garage, something in me cracked open, something I didn't even know I had been holding together. Because the woman beside Grant wasn't just a stranger. She was someone I knew. My name is Riley Hart, and until that moment in the parking garage, I truly believed I had built a stable life. Maybe not glamorous, maybe not effortless, but steady enough to raise a child and welcome another one soon. I wasn't born into comfort. My mother worked double shifts at a diner in Ohio, and I learned early that life rarely hands you anything without demanding something back. So when I earned a scholarship and made my way to New York, I promised myself I would create the kind of home I never had. For a while, I thought I succeeded. I worked my way up to senior project coordinator at a financial firm off Madison Avenue, managing deadlines while navigating morning sickness and afternoons spent picking Hazel up from school. Grant, my husband, liked to say he admired my resilience. But admiration from a man like him came with conditions, silent ones, invisible ones, shaping my days without me noticing. Still, I tried. I believed in our marriage long after the shine began to dull. I excused his long nights, his cold apologies, the way he stopped asking about my dreams. I told myself we were just tired parents, trying to survive the grind of the city. And when I found out I was pregnant again, with a baby we hadn't planned, I convinced myself it was a blessing that would bring us closer. But here's the truth I avoided for too long. Sometimes, a blessing only reveals the cracks you've been refusing to see. I became smaller without even noticing, quieter, more careful, more accommodating. Every decision felt like walking barefoot on glass. Every morning I wondered which version of Grant I'd get. And yet I stayed, because leaving felt heavier than enduring. Maybe that's what motherhood does. It teaches you to carry things that should never have been yours in the first place. On the surface, we were the picture-perfect young Manhattan family. A pre-war apartment in the Upper West Side, weekend walks through Central Park, Hazel's drawings taped proudly to the fridge. But inside, I lived in a fog of uncertainty, clinging to the hope that everything would eventually get better. I've won. Still, nothing prepared me for seeing him like that. Not Hazel's trembling voice, not the kiss, not the realization that the life I fought to protect was already gone. And what terrified me most wasn't losing Grant. It was realizing who stood next to him and how deeply she was tied to my past. New York has a way of making you believe your life is more glamorous than it really is. Maybe it was the skyline, or the way the city lights brushed against the windows of our Upper West Side apartment each night, turning the glass into a soft golden mirror. Grant loved that apartment, the high ceilings, the balcony overlooking Riverside Park, the sleek kitchen counters he bragged about to his colleagues. He said it made us look established, his favorite word. For me, it was simply home. A place where Hazel colored at the Marble Island while I worked late on my MacBook, trying to balance spreadsheets with dinner schedules. A place where I folded tiny baby clothes in the nursery we hadn't even finished painting. a place where I kept hoping love would find its way back to us. I used to walk past the Fifth Avenue boutiques on my way to work, admiring displays I couldn't justify, splurging on silk dresses, Cartier bracelets glinting beneath soft spotlights, perfumes that made the whole sidewalk smell like old Hollywood. I always told myself luxury belonged to other women, not to someone like me who learned to stretch every dollar and repair every broken thing instead of replacing it. Maybe that's why I clung so tightly to the little beauty in my life. Hazel's giggles, the view from our fire escape, the soft hum of the city outside our window. They were small things, but they kept me going. Grant's world, on the other hand, grew grander with every promotion. His meetings were suddenly in glass boardrooms high above Manhattan, his business dinners at the River Café with the skyline sparkling behind him. When he started bringing home Mont Blanc pens and cufflinks from clients, I tried not to question it. He said it was networking. I wanted to believe him. But here's the truth. I never said out loud. I always felt like a guest in the life he was building, polished enough to stand beside him, but never truly belonging in his world. And now, standing alone in our perfectly staged living room hours after Hazel's call, I saw everything differently. The symmetry, the curated decor, the immaculate surfaces, they no longer looked like a home, they looked like a set. A place built to hide cracks. A place waiting for the final blow. And it came the moment I checked Grant's location history and saw he had been at that arena long before Hazel's school trip even arrived. Grant Whitford wasn't always the man I saw on that stolen video. When we first met, he was charming in a way that felt effortless, easy, smiles, sleeves rolled up, the kind of guy who remembered your coffee order and asked about your dreams as if they mattered. He used to say he admired my strength, my grit, my refusal to let life swallow me whole. Back then, he seemed grounded, humble even. But power changes people. Or maybe it just exposes what was already there. The more Grant climbed at Whitford and Hale Asset Management, the more polished and more distant he became. His wardrobe slowly shifted from discount ties to tailored Italian suits. His meetings moved from cramped midtown offices to conference rooms overlooking Park Avenue. His phone became an extension of his hand, buzzing constantly, lighting up with names I didn't recognize. He loved being admired. And Manhattan gave him no shortage of opportunities. At first, the late nights made sense, big clients, bigger deals, the kind of grind he claimed would set our family up for life. I believed him because I wanted to. Because Hazel needed stability. Because our unborn child deserved parents who tried. But admiration is a dangerous fuel. It never lasts long, and it always demands more. I started noticing the shifts. The way Grant looked past me during conversations. The way he corrected how I dressed for work events. Just something more polished, Riley. The way he introduced me to colleagues like I was an accessory, not his wife. At dinners, he would hold court, telling jokes, flashing the confident grin that made strangers lean in. And when I spoke, he barely listened. His ambition wasn't the problem. His hunger for validation was. Here's what I learned the hard way. A man who depends on applause eventually forgets who clapped for him when he had nothing. Still, nothing prepared me for who stood beside him at that arena, the woman Hazel accidentally caught in the frame. The woman he kissed like she was the center of his universe. A woman who belonged to a part of Grant's world he had sworn didn't exist. Someone polished, young, with a perfect smile and a designer coat. I recognized instantly the kind sold at boutiques on Fifth Avenue, where price tags didn't dare show numbers. A woman who should have been a stranger. But she wasn't. Not to me. Because the moment I zoomed in on her face, a sickening chill ran down my spine. I knew exactly who she was, and why her presence would destroy far more than my marriage. I drove to the arena, with my heart pounding so loudly it felt like it echoed inside the SUV. Hazel's video kept replaying in my mind, Grant's hand on that woman's waist, the kiss, the careless smile. But seeing something through a child's shaky camera is different from seeing it with your own eyes. A part of me, maybe the last naive part, still clinging to hope, prayed the angle was misleading, that there was an explanation waiting for me. But the city has a cruel way of stripping illusions. As I approached the entrance of the arena, the noise grew into a thunderous wall. Cheers, whistles, the thrum of bass vibrating through the concrete. School buses lined the curb, teachers wrangling excited kids, parents waving from the crowd. I scanned the stands from the corridor, nausea rising. And then I saw him. Grant wasn't tucked away in some discreet corner. No. He sat in the lower VIP section, where cameras swept the audience and influencers filmed everything for their feeds. His arm draped around her shoulders, Ariel Lane, a name I hadn't heard in years. A woman who used to work under me. A woman whose ambition burned hotter than any loyalty she pretended to have. She leaned into him, whispering something that made him laugh, the same laugh he once reserved for me during our early years, before titles and money reshaped him. I felt the floor tilt. Hazel, unaware of the chaos inside my chest, tugged my sleeve. "Mom, there they are." Her voice was hopeful, innocent. Maybe he'll come up here and sit with us. He wouldn't. We both knew it, but only one of us understood why. When I stepped closer, a few nearby parents glanced at me with the kind of sympathetic recognition that cuts deeper than judgment. One whispered, "Is that her?" Another murmured, "She shouldn't have to see this." I wanted to disappear, to run, to hide this humiliation from my daughter, but my feet carried me forward until Grant finally noticed me. His smile faltered. His hand dropped from Ariel's shoulder like it had been burned. Ariel followed his gaze, and when her eyes met mine, her lips curled not with guilt, but triumph. She had waited for this. She wanted me to see. And in that moment, surrounded by strangers, bright lights, and my daughter's confusion, I realized this betrayal wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, calculated. What I didn't know yet, what no one in that arena knew, was that Ariel wasn't just stealing my husband. She was executing a plan that had been in motion long before I ever suspected a thing. I made it to the parking lot before the tears finally broke through. It wasn't the soft, graceful crying you see in movies. It was the kind that shakes your ribs and steals the air from your lungs. I sat in the driver's seat of the SUV, fingers trembling against the leather steering wheel, the echo of the arena noise fading behind me like a world I no longer belonged to. Hazel sat quietly in the back, confused, kicking her little sneakers against the floor mat. She didn't understand why her mother's face looked like it was collapsing. I didn't have the strength to explain. How do you tell an 8-year-old that her father chose someone else? How do you tell her that the family she trusts is splintering right in front of her? My stomach tightened, part fear, part grief, part the tiny life growing inside me, reacting to the storm. I placed a hand over my belly, whispering, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." As if apologizing could soften the blow, life was preparing to deliver. The city lights blurred past my windshield as I closed my eyes, letting the darkness press against me. There are moments in life when you realize the version of yourself you've been holding together is finally unraveling, and you have no choice but to watch. I felt small, inadequate, betrayed, but more than anything, I felt stupid. Stupid for believing Grant's apologies, stupid for excusing every late-night meeting, stupid for thinking love and endurance could fix a man who didn't want to be fixed. I remembered the nights he accused me of being too emotional, the mornings he dismissed my instincts, the way he weaponized my fears as if they were weaknesses instead of warnings. A part of me wondered if he ever truly saw me at all, or if I had only been a placeholder until someone shinier came along. A knock on my window jolted me. A security guard leaned in, concern written across his face. "Ma'am, are you okay? You've been sitting here a while." I forced a nod, wiping my cheeks with shaking hands. As he walked away, Hazel whispered, "Mom, did Dad do something bad?" The question sliced deeper than any betrayal. "Yes, sweetheart," I said softly, swallowing the pain. "He did." And as those words left my mouth, something inside me shifted, not healed, not strengthened, but awakened. A quiet spark, faint but undeniable. Because if Grant and Ariel had spent years planning this betrayal, then I needed to understand why. And the first clue was waiting for me inside my own home. When Hazel finally fell asleep that night, curled against her stuffed bunny, I stood alone in the dim hallway of our apartment. The silence felt wrong, thick, unnatural, like the calm before a storm no one survives. I walked into Grant's office, a room he guarded like a vault. He always said it was work stuff, things I didn't need to stress over. But grief has a way of stripping away fear, and betrayal gives you permission to open doors you once respected. The faint glow of his MacBook lit the desk. He never left it unlocked. Ever. Which is why my breath caught when the screen blinked awake at the touch of my hand. Emails appeared instantly. Not work emails, not financial projections or client memos. A thread titled, Transition Timeline Post-Riley Plans. My pulse hammered. I clicked. The first thing I saw was Ariel's name, her professional email signature, the same one I used to read when she worked under me. They had been talking for months. But it wasn't the affair that made my legs go weak. It was the content. They weren't planning a separation. They were planning my removal from the company I didn't even know I was connected to, from decisions I didn't realize included me, from a future I wasn't supposed to be part of. There were contracts with my name on them, agreements signed by Grant years earlier, agreements tying part of his executive compensation, bonuses, and stock options to my legal and financial participation. I didn't understand the details, but one thing was clear. If he divorced me quietly, he owed me millions. If he destroyed me publicly, he owed me nothing. And he had chosen destroy. My stomach twisted. The affair wasn't the beginning, it was the final step of a strategy I didn't know I was part of. Ariel hadn't just been a mistress. She had been promoted into position. Emails showed meeting logs between her, Grant, and a senior partner discussing how to shift optics, prepare documentation, and mitigate Riley's potential leverage. My marriage wasn't collapsing. It had been dismantled by design. Then I opened the last attachment. A photo. Ariel at our dinner table, wearing my sweater, holding Hazel's drawing, smiling like she already lived here. I stumbled back, gripping the edge of the desk. This wasn't an affair. This was a replacement. And just when panic threatened to swallow me whole, another notification popped up on the corner of the screen, one I wasn't supposed to see. It was from someone I never expected. Someone who knew exactly what Grant was doing. Someone who wrote, "Riley, we need to talk. Tonight." I didn't sleep that night. The message from the unknown sender kept replaying in my mind. "Riley, we need to talk. Tonight." It led me to a quiet corner booth at a late-night cafe in Soho, where I came face-to-face with someone I hadn't seen in years. Noah Callahan, former colleague, now a senior financial investigator. He looked older, sharper, but his eyes held the same sincerity that once made him the only person at work who ever bothered to ask if I was okay. He slid a folder across the table. "Grant's been building something dark," he said. "And you're the missing piece he never thought would fight back." Inside were documents, charts, timelines, proof that Grant had shifted assets, manipulated accounts, and set up a narrative designed to discredit me. Noah wasn't exaggerating. Grant wasn't just trying to replace me emotionally. He was trying to erase me financially. My hands shook, but something inside me, the same grit that carried me through every hardship, clicked into place. That night, I stood in front of the mirror in our dimly lit bedroom. I barely recognized the woman staring back. Swollen eyes, trembling shoulders, hair pulled into the kind of desperate bun only mothers in crisis understand. I looked defeated. I wasn't going to stay that way. I opened my closet and reached for the two things I had almost forgotten: the navy blazer I wore the day I earned my first promotion, and the silk blouse I bought during a sample sale on Fifth Avenue, the one I'd saved for a moment when I wanted to feel powerful. It still fit. There's a moment in every woman's life when she realizes no one is coming to save her. That moment doesn't break her, it builds her. The next morning, I dropped Hazel at school, kissed her forehead, and walked into my firm's headquarters with a confidence I hadn't felt in years. My heels echoed against the marble floors like a declaration. I met with HR, then legal, then compliance. Every department listened when I spoke, not because I was loud, but because truth carries its own gravity. By noon, I had allies quiet but determined. People who had also seen Grant's shifts, his sudden secrecy, his unexplained access to accounts he shouldn't control. I wasn't the powerless wife in the shadows anymore. I was a woman preparing for war. When I stepped outside, the winter wind cut across my cheeks, cold and clarifying. My phone buzzed. A text, unknown number again. A single line. "Grant knows you're digging. He's on his way home." And, dumb. Grant stormed into the apartment just after sunset, his expensive cologne hitting the room before he did. He always smelled like that, like boardrooms, ambition, and a life he built by stepping over people who never saw him coming. His coat, a tailored charcoal piece he bragged about buying on Madison Avenue, landed angrily on the couch. "So," he snapped, "you've been busy today." I didn't answer. I simply closed my laptop, slid the stack of printed documents into a folder, and stood. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of him. I was focused. He took a few steps closer. "You have no idea what you're getting yourself into, Riley. You think poking around my company will help you? It'll destroy you." I almost laughed. "You already destroyed me, Grant. I'm just cleaning up the pieces." His jaw clenched. He wasn't used to losing control of a narrative. He thrived on being admired, feared, respected, anything but challenged. I grabbed my coat and stepped past him. "You might want to get dressed," I said calmly. "You have a gala tonight, and I wouldn't miss it for the world." Grant froze. The mid-year investor gala, held every year at the Plaza Hotel, dripping in chandeliers, champagne, and egos. He was supposed to be the star of the night, the rising executive, the man with everything under control. Except tonight, I was going too, and I wasn't going alone. When I entered the ballroom hours later, cameras flashed instantly. The marble floors gleamed beneath the golden lights, and elegant clusters of New York's elite paused mid-conversation to stare. I wore a deep emerald gown, borrowed from a coworker with a better fashion sense than budget. The cut was simple, but the confidence I carried made it look like couture. And beside me stood Noah, polished, steady, sharp, not as my date, but as my ally. The man who knew exactly what Grant had done and was ready to expose it. Grant's face visibly drained when he saw me. Ariel, draped in a silver gown that sparkled too loudly, clung to his side, her smile faltering. I approached the stage just as Grant prepared to give his annual speech. "No," I said, stepping forward as the room quieted. "I believe I'll start." Gasps rippled like a wave. I clicked the remote Noah handed me. Screens lit up across the ballroom. Emails, contracts, transfers, plans. Grant's betrayal, projected 10 feet tall. He lunged toward me too late, because the final slide appeared. A message from Grant himself, sent to Ariel, titled, "Once Riley's out of the picture." And the room erupted. The ballroom had dissolved into chaos, voices rising, investors demanding answers, cameras flashing like lightning. Grant's carefully constructed world trembled under the weight of truth projected across 10-foot screens. For a moment, I simply stood there, breathing, letting the noise swirl around me like a storm I was no longer afraid of. Noah's hand rested briefly on my shoulder, grounding me. "You did it," he murmured. But I hadn't, not fully, not yet. I stepped toward the microphone again, my heart pounding loud enough to feel it in my fingertips. The crowd slowly stilled, curious despite themselves. People love a spectacle, but they love redemption more. I took a breath. "Some of you know me only as Grant Whitford's wife, the quiet one, the supportive one, the woman behind the scenes." My voice steadied. "But I'm here tonight to say something I should have said a long time ago." Dozens of eyes locked on me. I am more than what someone tried to reduce me to. A ripple of surprise moved across the room. Even Ariel, who stood rigid beside Grant, mascara streaking slightly, looked shaken by the certainty in my voice. I wasn't speaking just for me now. I was speaking for every woman who had ever been told to stay quiet, to be agreeable, to let things go. I continued, "For years, I thought endurance made me strong, that staying silent preserved peace. But peace built on lies isn't peace, it's imprisonment. And tonight, I choose freedom." Someone in the crowd began to clap, then another, and another. Soon the applause grew loud enough to drown out Grant's frantic attempts to defend himself. I let it wash over me, not as validation, but as release. Because strength isn't built in the moments you hold everything together. It's built in the moment you finally let something fall apart. When the applause died down, I stepped away from the podium. I didn't need to say more. The truth spoke for itself. Security approached Grant. Investors surrounded Ariel, questioning her involvement. The empire they tried to build on deceit was cracking in real time, and I watched not vengefully, but with the clarity of someone who had finally stopped apologizing for existing. Noah walked beside me as we left the ballroom, the cold air outside, the plaza brushing against my skin like a second awakening. "Riley," he said gently, "this is the beginning, not the end." I nodded. He was right, but I didn't expect what waited for me when I got home. A message on my voicemail that would twist the story yet again. A message from someone who shouldn't have known anything, but knew everything. The voicemail played in the dark kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator, the only witness to the tremor in my hands. The voice was calm, deliberate, too calm for the information it carried. Riley, this is Marlene, from compliance. You need to know something before Grant tries to reach you. Call me back immediately. And don't trust anything he says tonight. My pulse quickened. Marlene was known for her strict professionalism. She wasn't the type to get involved in personal affairs. Whatever pushed her to contact me meant the situation was worse than even Noah had revealed. Before I could replay the message, the front door slammed. Grant. His footsteps were uneven, furious, frantic. He stormed into the living room, tie loose, hair disheveled from whatever chaos followed after the gala. You humiliated me, he hissed. Do you have any idea what you've done? I didn't back away. I showed the truth. The truth? He echoed, almost laughing. You think you know the truth? He stepped closer, eyes wild. You were supposed to stay quiet. You were supposed to sign the agreement and disappear. My stomach tightened. What agreement? The mocking smile that spread across his face told me he enjoyed the power he thought he still had. The dissolution agreement I drafted. The one Ariel helped prepare. You would have gotten a small payout, custody, split, no access to my accounts. Clean, simple, manageable. He leaned in. But you ruined it. I felt heat rise in my chest, not fear, but fury. You planned to erase me. Because you were dead weight, Riley. His voice cracked like a whip. You held me back. You and that kid and this pregnancy you conveniently dropped on me. My hand flew to my stomach, instinctively protective. He noticed. And he smirked. There are moments when a person reveals themselves so clearly, so viciously, that every doubt you've ever held shatters into certainty. In that moment, I finally understood. Grant didn't lose himself. He chose this. But then he made a mistake. A catastrophic one. He threw a folder onto the coffee table. You shouldn't have dug around. Because now, everything that happens to you, to Hazel, to that baby, is on you. Inside the folder were documents. Not forged ones. Not financial ones. Real ones. Custody petitions. Character statements. And at the bottom, an affidavit with a signature I recognized. Ariel's. Claiming I was emotionally unstable. Claiming I was unfit. Claiming I had sabotaged Grant's career. I stared at the papers, heart pounding in my throat. Grant whispered, "It's already in motion. Is place day." But he wasn't done, not even close. Because then he said, the one sentence that chilled my blood. "And Riley, you should ask yourself who else signed against you." For a long moment, all I could hear was the faint buzz of the refrigerator, the breath in my chest rising too quickly, the rustle of papers that felt heavier than they should. Grant watched me, arms folded, soaking in my shock like it was applause. "You're not asking the right question," he said slowly. "You shouldn't be asking why Ariel signed. You should be asking who convinced her." I stared at the affidavit again. The words swam. Unfit mother, emotional instability, sabotaging his career. Lies wrapped in professional language, designed to wound quietly and deeply. But there was a second signature line. One I hadn't noticed before because I didn't want to believe what my eyes were showing me. My breath froze. It wasn't just Ariel who signed. It was my sister, Jenna. Grant tilted his head. "There it is," he murmured, pleased with the destruction he'd just dropped. "Took you long enough." My vision tunneled. Jenna, the person I had helped move to the city, the person I supported after every failed relationship, the person Hazel adored. She had held my baby shower. She had promised she'd be my rock. And she signed an affidavit calling me unfit. "Why?" I whispered. Grant shrugged. "She needed money. I needed leverage. It wasn't hard." He smiled. "People are loyal to whoever saves them. And Jenna needed saving." I sank onto the couch. The betrayal stung worse than anything Grant or Ariel had done. Family betrayal hits differently, like a blade slipped between ribs by someone you trusted to carry your heart. He stepped closer. "You're outnumbered, Riley, and when this goes to court, you'll lose everything. Hazel, the baby, your job, your reputation." He leaned down until I felt his breath. "I told you, you should have just signed quietly." "I know." But something in me hardened. If Grant expected me to crumble, he was about to learn the one truth he had underestimated. I don't break. Not for him. Not anymore. I stood, the papers still trembling in my hands. "You think allies make you powerful," I said. "But you forgot something." His smirk wavered. "I have allies too." He scoffed. No one will stand with you after tonight. I felt a strange calm settle in my chest. Because while Grant's betrayal hit like a tidal wave, the world has a way of balancing itself, bringing help from the most unexpected places. As if on cue, a knock echoed through the apartment. Grant stiffened. I stepped back, pulse quickening. Because standing on the other side of that door, waiting to be let in, was the last person Grant ever wanted me to speak to. The one person who knew every secret he tried to bury. When I opened the door, the hallway light spilled across a face I hadn't seen up close since the arena Ariel Lane. Except this time, she wasn't dressed in a sleek gown or wearing Grant's confidence like borrowed jewelry. Tonight, she looked shaken, mascara smudged, lips pressed into a thin line. Grant's eyes widened. "Ariel, what are you doing here?" She ignored him and pushed past the doorway, the faint scent of her expensive perfume drifting in with her. She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time, without the smugness she wore like a second skin. "We need to talk," she said. Grant barked a laugh. "Riley isn't talking to you." Her gaze flicked sharply to him. "I wasn't asking you." For the first time, he faltered. Ariel opened her purse and pulled out her phone. "You should see this," she said to me, before he tries to spin it. On the screen was an email. Sent from Grant. Not to her, but to another woman. A woman whose name I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Once Ariel is out of the way." My breath caught. Grant lunged for the phone, but Ariel jerked it back. "You were planning to replace me," she snapped, voice shaking. "The same way you tried to replace Riley." Grant's face went pale. "Ariel, that's taken out of context." "No," she hissed, eyes burning. "You promised me everything. And then I found the agreements you drafted, the same ones you made her sign, the same ones you tried to force me into. You were going to bury me too." In that moment, I realized something cruel but liberating. Men like Grant don't love women. They recruit them, use them, discard them. Ariel continued, "But that's not why I'm here." She turned toward me. "You need to know what Jenna did wasn't voluntary." My stomach nodded. "What do you mean?" Ariel hesitated, then whispered. "Grant threatened her, told her he'd expose something from her past, something she thought was buried. She didn't sign because she wanted to hurt you. She signed because she thought he'd ruin her." I felt dizzy. Betrayed by my sister, but also suddenly terrified for her. Grant exploded. "Ariel, stop talking." But she wasn't done. "Riley," she said, stepping closer, "there's more. Something bigger. Something he's been hiding from all of us." Grant lunged again, this time not for the phone, but for her. I grabbed Hazel's baseball bat from the umbrella stand and swung it between them. "Don't touch her." Grant froze, breath ragged. And Ariel whispered the 5 words that changed everything. "He's being investigated by the FBI." The room felt smaller after Ariel's confession, the air thick with dread. Grant's chest rose and fell sharply, rage heating his skin. "Ariel, you don't know what you're talking about," he snapped, but his eyes wide, panicked, told a different story. Before he could spin another lie, the door behind us swung open again. Noah. He stepped inside without hesitation, wearing a charcoal coat dusted with winter frost. His expression shifted instantly when he saw Grant, but he didn't back down. Noah had always moved with a quiet confidence, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. Tonight, though, he radiated something sharper resolve. "I told you to wait in the car," I whispered. "I know," he said calmly, but Marlene called again. She said Grant's access was revoked tonight, and the FBI officially froze 2 of his accounts. His eyes flicked toward Grant. "They want Riley protected." Grant laughed a brittle, unhinged sound. "Protected? From me? She's the one sneaking around with investigators." Noah didn't blink. "We're not sneaking. We're uncovering what you did." He pulled a folder from his coat and set it on the coffee table. "And Riley is no longer alone in this." Ariel moved closer to Noah, voice trembling. "He forged signatures. He laundered company money through shell accounts. I didn't see it at first, but I found spreadsheets he hid. Someone on the inside helped him." Grant lunged for her, but Noah stepped between them, his tone cold and precise. "Touch her, and I'll make sure you're in cuffs before sunrise." End quote. For the first time, Grant truly hesitated. I watched him, stunned by how quickly a man can unravel when the spotlight turns against him. Betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's revealed in the quiet moments when a mask slips and you see the coward underneath. Ariel's voice softened as she turned to me. Riley, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because I realize the only person he won't hesitate to sacrifice is you. The room stilled. Noah placed a protective hand on my back. We're going to take this to the board. We're going to dismantle everything he built on your name. Grant's voice cracked with a desperation I had never heard. Riley, listen to me. But I was done listening. I straightened, my voice clear and steady. The only thing I want from you now is the truth. Grant's jaw clenched. You can't handle it. Noah looked at him sharply. Try her. And Grant did. He opened his mouth and told us something that made even Ariel take a step back. I wasn't the only one running this scheme. I woke the next morning with a clarity I hadn't felt in months, maybe years. Fear had kept me small, but now the truth was out, and something inside me had finally snapped into place. Grant wanted a war built on shadows. I was done hiding in them. Noah had arranged a meeting for me at a private office space overlooking Park Avenue, a glass-walled conference suite reserved for high-level clients. When I stepped inside, the Manhattan skyline stretched beneath me like a promise. The sun reflected off the towers, catching the metallic edges of buildings in sharp gold. It felt like the city was watching, waiting. A consultant team sat at the table, legal strategists, corporate auditors, and a crisis PR specialist. All here for me. I wasn't used to people preparing a battlefield on my behalf, and for a moment, I hesitated at the door. But then I remembered Hazel's voice cracking in the arena. I remembered the documents Grant threw at my feet. I remembered my sister's shaky signature, coerced and terrified. And I walked in. One of the attorneys stood. Mrs. Hart, we're ready when you are. I wasn't Mrs. Whitford anymore, not in my heart. I sat down, opened my notebook, and began. We worked for hours dissecting Grant's schemes, faked signatures, manipulated compensation agreements, threats, laundering trails, emails that proved intent. Ariel provided even more evidence, forwarding every file she had uncovered. It was ugly, but it was powerful. And then came the part I dreaded, preparing my public statement. The PR specialist slid a draft toward me. This is strong, but it needs your voice. My voice. The one I had lost piece by piece over the years. I rewrote the statement, every line. I wrote it for myself, for Hazel, for the child I was still carrying, for every woman who had ever been told she was dramatic, emotional, imagining things. Because when a woman finally stops apologizing for her pain, the world has no choice but to listen. Noah watched quietly, pride flickering in his eyes. You're stronger than you know, he said. I didn't answer. Strength wasn't something I claimed yet, it was something I was still learning to inhabit. When we finished, the PR specialist exhaled. This will destroy Grant's standing with the board. If they weren't already panicking, they will be now. A small, cold part of me felt satisfaction. As the meeting wrapped, Noah handed me a small box. Inside was a Mont Blanc pen, sleek, gold-trimmed. For signing the documents that end his empire, he said softly. I closed my fingers around it, feeling its weight. But just as I stepped into the hallway, my phone buzzed. A voicemail. From Jenna, her voice shaking. Riley, you need to hear what Grant threatened me with. It's worse than you think. I replayed Jenna's voicemail 3 times on the walk back to my apartment. Her voice trembled as if each word cost her something. Riley, he has something on me. Something from years ago. I never meant to sign anything against you. Please, please call me. I should have felt anger, betrayal, maybe even disgust. But what washed over me instead was a heavy, aching sorrow. Grant wasn't satisfied with breaking our marriage. He was poisoning every relationship orbiting my life. When I arrived home, the hallway smelled like cold air and tension. Noah insisted on walking me to the door. Just stay aware, he murmured. People who feel exposed become unpredictable. He wasn't wrong, because the moment I stepped inside, Grant was waiting. Not confident, not composed, not the polished professional he always pretended to be. He was unraveling. His eyes were bloodshot, his shirt wrinkled, hair disheveled as though he'd been pulling at it. Empty whiskey glasses littered the counter. A half-packed duffel bag sat on the floor, stuffed with cash, documents, and what looked like a burner phone. He spun toward me too quickly. They froze everything, he spat. My accounts, my access, my entire career gone, because you couldn't just sign the damn papers. I kept my distance. Because your plan was to erase me. If you not takes the Zom, he laughed, a hollow, broken sound. Erase you? Riley, you erased me. You paraded those files in front of investors. You embarrassed me in front of the board. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Good, I said. Let them call. Let everyone know who you really are. He stepped closer, pointing a shaking finger at me. You think this is over? Those files you showed? They're nothing compared to what I have. I forced my breathing steady. Whatever you're threatening, it won't work. End quote. Oh, it will, he said, lifting his phone. Because I'm not going down alone. I've been talking to Jenna all night. She's ready to confess everything. My stomach clenched. Confess what? That she helped you hide money. His smile twisted. That you manipulated me. That you've been unstable for years. She's signing a full statement. My voice cracked. She wouldn't. She already did, he snapped. But here's the thing about liars. The deeper the desperation, the sloppier the lie. And in that moment, for the first time, I saw real fear in Grant's eyes. Not anger, not arrogance, fear. Because he wasn't fighting to win anymore. He was fighting to survive. Before I could respond, Noah stepped into the doorway behind me. Funny, he said coldly, because Jenna is in our office right now, telling a very different story. Grant's face drained of color. And then Noah added, and she brought proof. When you takes us, the night of the winter charity gala arrived with a sharp wind and a colder truth. Grant was cornered, and cornered men don't walk into a room, they crash through it. Still, I knew I had to be there. The board, the investors, the entire upper tier of Whitford and Hale would be watching. And tonight, for the first time, I wanted them to. Noah picked me up in a black sedan, the city lights streaking across the windshield as we drove toward the Waldorf Astoria. I wore a simple but elegant black gown, a loan from one of the PR consultants with a fitted silhouette that made me feel steady, grounded, not flashy, not dramatic, just unbreakable. When I stepped into the ballroom, conversations thinned, heads turned, even the music faltered for a beat. New York's elite had a sixth sense for scandal, and I was walking directly into its center. I spotted Grant near the stage. His suit looked immaculate, but his eyes were wild, darting, calculating, searching for a way out. Ariel stood stiffly beside him, refusing to meet his gaze. She had chosen self-preservation over loyalty, something Grant never expected. Noah whispered, "The board is ready. They've seen Jenna's statement, the bank records, everything." He squeezed my shoulder. Tonight isn't about revenge. It's about truth. He was right. Revenge satisfies the moment. Truth restores the future. The CEO stepped onto the stage first, tapping the microphone. Before we begin tonight's program, we have an urgent matter to address. Murmurs rippled through the ballroom. Riley Hart, he said, gesturing toward me, has provided evidence of executive misconduct that concerns not only this company, but our legal responsibilities as a financial institution. Grant coughed out a laugh, the sound brittle. This is ridiculous. She's lying. She forged everything. I have Hilbit. I stepped forward, steady, calm. Show them your emails then, Grant. Show them your offshore transfers. Show them the affidavit you forced my sister to sign. His face contorted. You don't know what you're talking about. But then Noah hit the remote. Screens around the ballroom lit up, not with the documents we had used before, but with something new. Recordings. Grant's voice. Grant's threats. Grant planning to frame me. And Jenna. And even Ariel. Real proof. Undeniable. Gasps filled the room. Investors shifted away from him. A board member muttered, "My God." Grant staggered backward, eyes darting wildly. Who recorded that?" Noah answered, "Someone you underestimated." I felt a chill as the final clip played. Grant, whispering into a phone, "Once Riley is discredited, everything falls into place." But the recording didn't end there. A second voice responded, a voice I recognized. My breath caught as the ballroom collectively leaned in. Asterisk, asterisk. Because the voice helping Grant destroy me belonged to someone I never imagined. Someone I trusted. The ballroom fell completely silent. Even the orchestra in the corner stopped mid-note. The recording continued, crackling through the speakers, my heartbeat pounding louder with each passing second. Once Riley is discredited, everything falls into place. Then the second voice spoke. A voice smooth, steady. "My sister, Jenna." "Don't worry," she whispered on the tape. "I'll handle her. She trusts me. She won't see it coming." A collective gasp rippled through the room. My throat closed. The world tilted. Hearing her name on the affidavit had hurt, but hearing her voice conspiring with Grant was something else entirely. A deeper wound. A more intimate cut. Across the ballroom, cameras swung toward Grant, but he wasn't looking at the screens. He was staring straight at me, waiting, watching, almost savoring the moment. "You see?" he said loudly, his voice cracked but triumphant. "You're not the victim you pretend to be. Even your own sister thinks you're unstable." But his confidence was unraveling fast. Because people weren't looking at me with doubt, they were looking at him with disgust. Noah stepped forward, eyes narrowed. "Play the rest." The audio resumed. Jenna spoke again, but this time her voice wavered. "I don't want to do this anymore, Grant. It's too far." Grant snapped back. "You already signed. You think backing out helps you? If she goes down, you go down with her." A tremor moved through the crowd. Someone muttered, "He threatened her." Then Jenna whispered, breaking, "You said you'd destroy her career, her custody, her reputation. Why are you doing this?" Grant's reply chilled the room. "Because Riley thinks she's smarter than me. Because she had everything handed to her and still failed. Because she isn't strong enough to walk away. Women like her never are." And then his voice hit a tone I had never heard before, sharp, venomous. "She should have stayed in her place." The tape clicked off. The silence afterward felt heavier than sound. There are moments when the truth doesn't free you, it exposes the battlefield you've been fighting blind. And in that moment, I finally saw every scar with clarity, not as wounds, but as proof I had survived him far longer than I realized. A board member rose abruptly. "Mr. Whitford, you are hereby suspended pending federal investigation." Grant's face drained. Ariel stepped away from him like he was contagious. Cameras flashed. Security approached. But none of that mattered, because while Grant's empire was collapsing in front of hundreds, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A single line. "Riley, it wasn't just Jenna. Call me before you go home." "I can." The cold air slapped my cheeks as I exited the Waldorf Astoria, flashes from reporters still bursting behind me like tiny explosions. My phone buzzed again with the same unknown number that had warned me earlier. "Riley, please. It's urgent. I'm outside your apartment. Don't go in alone." No name, no explanation. Noah insisted on driving me back, refusing to let me face whatever waited without support. As we pulled up to my building, the streetlights cast long shadows across the sidewalk, and then I saw her. Jenna. She stood by the entrance, arms wrapped around herself, mascara streaked, hair tangled by the wind. She looked small, nothing like the traitor the recording suggested, more like someone who had finally reached her breaking point. "Riley," she whispered, voice cracking. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't speak. I just waited. She swallowed hard. "Grant didn't just threaten me with my past. He threatened Hazel. He said he could get custody. He said he'd make sure she never stayed with you."